Hey folks, it's Ardwulf. Welcome. We have another unwrapping situation for you here today, this time of another third-party advanced squad leader product from Bounding Fire Productions. This is Objective Schmidt. Now, I don't know a lot about this particular situation, except that the Tactical Combat series very early on, this is game number 2 in the Tactical Combat series, also did a game on Objective Schmidt by Dave Powell. So that in itself is fairly interesting, but this is that situation in ASL. Roughly the same scale, by the way, if not exactly the same scale. So we have a roughly 3/4 inch stack of stuff here in a shrink-wrapped bundle. So let's open her up, trying not to wreck anything, and see what we get. I actually only once or twice have I actually ruined a component by removing the shrink wrap. But I am nevertheless quite paranoid about doing so. Alright, so it's a big loose stack, so we'll just go through it a piece at a time here. So we have an Objective Schmidt cover sheet, blank inside. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 maps. Holy Toledo. Okay, so what we have here, it looks like we have maps at multiple scales too. So let's take a look at what the back of the package says for us here. 2 ASL maps, which combine to represent the historical situation of the town of Vosenac, and 4 ASL maps with 1-inch hex grids, which combine to represent the historical situation of the towns of Schmidt and Kommerscheid. Okay, that's very interesting. So we have 2 different disconnected areas. On the one hand, we have this 2-map area with pretty standard-sized ASL hexes. And then on the other hand, we have this 4-map area with oversized hexes. So let's look, because I think it'll show up better on video, at the oversized hex map so that we can get a sense of the art. Once again, as I've come to expect from Bounding Fire, pretty good. It's clean looking. I don't know that I would call it a modern wargame art style for maps, but it's a pretty good facsimile of the ASL art style for maps, and the ASL community has shown great reluctance in moving on from that time-honored style. So this looks pretty good. As you can see, there's a whole bunch of slope here, and in fact, there's an article in here about slope. So giant pile of maps in this bundle. Let's try to keep things somewhat organized. Okay. And good amount of counters here as well. Let's look at the counters last, because there's also, okay, a whole bunch of stuff. So here is our Objective Schmidt rules in loose leaf format. Again, as I've seen this before from Bounding Fire, on a glossy paper, loose leaf. So it looks like I am not going to attempt to go through these line by line, but it looks like there's about 7 pages of Objective Schmidt specific rules, and then we get into campaign game rules. And as I've also mentioned before, there are ASL players who really, really, really like the historical campaign games, and those folks don't really even like to play the ASL on the generic maps. And I can understand the impulse there, even though the campaign games are generally fairly large, and this one's definitely enormous. So you get a lot of paper in here, too. Here's our big article on slopes in ASL by Chaz Smith. One of the fairly difficult rules topics in ASL, we have a spacer here. Then we get scenarios. Let's put this over here. Look at the scenarios next, because after the scenarios, we have another spacer. And then we have some displays. Here's a campaign game force organizer. There's one for the Germans and one for the Americans. There are Americans in this engagement, right? It sure looks like it. Here's a little Objective Schmidt historical battle rules for all OS scenarios card. With a strategy map on the back, which is also something that I've also seen in other Bounding Fire Productions products. Here is Objective Schmidt historical battle rules. Okay, so that's the stuff that's on the card. vehicle and ordnance notes. Interesting that that is necessary. And then we have campaign game rosters. I recommend photocopying those. And then we're into the scenarios. All right, we have OS1 conscript counter. This is Schmidt, Germany, 3 November 1944. And it uses their campaign map. I expect it to, but you never know. Sometimes these historical modules actually use the standard maps. The Wolf's, let's recenter on the camera a little bit. The Wolf's Howl, 4 November 1944. Schindler's Limp. Bad Omen. These are all on 4 November 1944 so far. Disaster at Schmidt. This looks like a bigger one. Indeed it does. So here's our German setup for OS5, and here's our American setup for OS5. And on the back of that, we have General Flag. And on the back of the other card, we have OS7 Devil's Sunday. This is 5 November 1944. Toehold. I haven't seen anything strange as in, like, I don't know if there was, free French in the area or not. My guess would be no, that wouldn't be the case in this area, thinking about it. Greyhounds, 7 November 1944. This, by the way, is part of the battle for Hurtgen Forest. I think I've heard it said that it was the bloodiest battle that the U.S. Army fought in World War II. Here we have a very large scenario at Wassenack, 2nd November 1944. Yeah, and as you can see, we've got a double setup card here as well. The number of squads is not that high. It's not, certainly these are not small. This is not a small scenario, but I mean, you look at the Germans. You got 7, 10, 17, 21 squads plus some crews. I mean, that's a big scenario by any possible standard. And the map, of course, is quite large as well. Looks like we get some campaign stuff on the back of that and this one. So a robust scenario selection, as we typically see from Bounding Fire. We have 2 1/2 counter sheets. These are on a thick brown core stock that feels pretty much like the same stuff that MMP prints on. The registration on this is, I wouldn't go so far as to say it's problematic, but it's really tight up here on this air. Here's some 5/8 inch counters, and then we have 2 full sheets of 1/2 inch counters. And they're pretty nice looking counters. So there's some kind of symbol on it, but I can't really make out based on the lighting in here, which is not optimal at the moment. Hopefully we'll be fixing that soon. A lot of American squads, American support weapons, some leaders. I wonder if these are historical named leaders. That would be interesting if that's the case. These are, of course, not Americans, but Germans. These are Americans. Squads, some crews, or some half squads, some crews, some leaders. And some new new concealment markers. Interesting that those were included. I wonder why. Interesting. Okay, so we have a nice little third-party ASL package here. As if you're into if you're into ASL in general, you might know that the reputation of third-party producers of ASL material is, according to some, fairly inconsistent. Bounding Fire, however, has quite a good reputation, so very interesting to have seen this particular piece. This is a buddy unboxing. A buddy of mine picked these up and shot them to me for unboxing purposes, so it's nice to take a look at them. Hopefully it has been nice for you to take a look at this as well. If so, please do subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, click the little bell icon for notifications, and if you'd like to do more to support Ardwulf's Lair, please do check out the notes and links in the video description for Patreon, the merch store, and the Ko-Fi shop. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, happy wargaming.